Hello and welcome to The Tonight Show, coming up as the country goes to the polls this Friday to determine who will be our 10th president. The race is far from slowing down, both candidates stepping up their campaigns with sharp criticisms of each other. This included an attack ad from Fine Gael targeting Catherine Connolly over her previous work as a barrister. First, for analysis of Heather Humphreys' performance on the big interview with Colette Fitzpatrick tonight, I am joined by columnist Sarah Carey, by activist and columnist Jenny Maguire, and Ireland editor with the Irish Independent, Fionnan. Sheahan, you can send us your comments as Friday's vote looms. Simply scan the QR code or contact us via the WhatsApp number. Fionnan, how did Heather Humphreys do?
Well, a lot livelier than she was with you here 2-3 weeks back. That performance on the first debate that you chaired has pretty much dogged her entire campaign. It really was a massive setback, whatever the strategy was that night, that she would sit back and let the other candidates do the speaking. It backfired really badly. So tonight we had a bit more life. It was livelier. There's a bit more personality came across, a bit feistier. We covered a lot of similar ground that's been gone over previously. A few alterations on the lines. For example, we've moved from Catherine Connolly hypocrisy to Catherine Connolly double standards, putting her own marker down about her own track record in terms of working for a financial institution herself, saying she never evicted anybody. Also spoke about the sectarian abuse that her family has incurred. That had been hinted at previously, but she's stated it quite clearly and put that out there. And now tonight, the Lucia O'Farrell line has altered. Previously, she was saying, if the O'Farrell family don't feel I did enough, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Now she's saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry flat out. I'm sorry I didn't get the answers they were looking for. And she became emotional on that question as well. So the language that she's using there has shifted. And beyond that, she's holding her line on social welfare, on animal welfare, on Irish, and so on. And she's also trying to put across her experience, trying to get in a few more mentions about her experience as a minister, trade delegations, and so on. So what you had here on the first night was community, unity, opportunity. We've now moved on over the last 10 days to pro-EU, pro-business, and that's pointing the finger at her opponent.
Yeah, as in, vote for me, I'm not Catherine Connolly.
Yes, yeah.
Jenny, you had a column in the paper the weekend, or late last week, talking about your support for Catherine Connolly. Anything you saw tonight make you change your mind?
Absolutely not. Quite the opposite. I think, she opened with the statement that, the campaign isn't panicked, and then I think she gave a performance that maybe speaks otherwise. I think some of her comments, especially around housing, around disability, the point that she's someone who has consulted but still had disability activists outside the Dáil for weeks and weeks trying to push for these reforms. This has not changed my mind slightly. I think the animal rights point was disastrous, and I think especially the doubling down on the video that has been so widely critiqued by almost every area, including the Bar of Ireland, was a bizarre move.
She used interesting language as well on that, Fiona, and I don't want to get bogged down in this because we're going to be speaking to Barry Ward, amongst others, from Fine Gael a little bit later, himself a senior counsel, and I'd be interested to get his view. But how she described it at the end, she said, Catherine Connolly worked for the banks, repossessing people's family homes. Now, I would suggest that someone like Barry Ward, had he acted in criminal defence, he would reject the description, he worked for a criminal organisation.
Yeah, it's in effect going in as hard as you can in an effort to flush out.
It's also a slight change in message. There was some in Fine Gael today suggesting, no, this has nothing to do with actually the legal system. It's because she's not answering the question straight.
Yes, because she's not answering the question. And
that wasn't really the message from Heather Humphreys
tonight. The other point that they were making was, well, look, we don't have a problem that the legal work she's doing, it's that in the political realm she wasn't declaring it. But tonight, as you say, that wasn't precisely what she was saying. She's actually saying, no, directly she worked for the banks.
Sarah, how would you describe the campaign overall? up until this point?
It's been very dispiriting, and I haven't watched hardly any of those debates because it's
Did you
terrible.
watch the first debate?
No, and I'll tell you why, Kieran. I'll tell you why.
Me.
It is so tough watching those and watching people with good records and conviction politicians like Catherine Connolly and like Heather Humphreys being torn apart line for line on everything they said or did for the past 20 years, almost none of which is relevant to the role of the presidency. We have two good candidates who want to be president who are going for election on Friday, and there are an awful lot of very angry people who are either going to stay at home and not vote or who are going to vote and spoil their vote. And I think that's a terrible thing. Someone is going to be president on Saturday and people have a really, really important choice to make. I'm encouraging them to go out and vote, and as you know, I am supporting Heather Humphreys because I want somebody who will protect our international reputation, and as head of state when we are president of the EU next year is not going to insult our allies and EU member states, and also because barely touched on in that interview or throughout the campaign has been the one thing that a president really can affect, which is the conversation around United Ireland. And I've been very concerned about the acceleration of a border poll, about the conversation around that, and we have a real choice now. Are we going with the Ulster Presbyterian, who in the Monaghan model, the Drum Orange Parade, where it's a community event, and the St. Patrick's Day Committee are swapping equipment with the Orange Order Committee, and that they can reach out to the most significant minority on the land and have a really inclusive United Ireland? Or are we going with the people who shame us for not speaking Irish, which I can't either, by the way? So, and that's not brought out in any of these interviews. It barely comes up. It's not being discussed. And actually, Catherine Connolly did say to the Fine Gael people today, and I think she was right, why aren't we discussing the vision for United Ireland? And that's what I think Heather should be doing for the next 3 days. And she didn't get a chance to do it there tonight. She's got 3 days left to do it, and I'd like to see her do more of that.
Jenny, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I think, Heather Humphreys would have been a perfect candidate for building United Ireland 15 years ago. What people in the north are concerned about today is the cost of living, a healthcare system, and it'll be those factors that truly influence any result of a border poll. And I think Heather Humphreys' record on failing to get on top of the housing crisis, a failing healthcare system that is leaving people and children on waiting lists, is not going to appeal to anyone north of the border.
Did she miss opportunities, do you feel, though, Sarah, to talk about these things? And I wonder, did you notice it? Maybe you didn't, because you say you tried to avoid some of these interviews as much as possible. But, and this maybe picks up on a point Fionnan made, which is, vote for me, I'm not Catherine Connolly. A lot of time when you question not just Heather Humphreys, but Heather Humphreys supporters about her and asked about Heather Humphreys as president, within 20 or 30 seconds, they would pivot to, and here's what's wrong with Catherine Connolly, as opposed to pivoting towards United Ireland or some of the other visions for the office. Yeah,
I think there's a lot in that they weren't positive enough, and that they didn't realise that what they saw as Heather Humphreys' weakness was actually her greatest strength. And that was something, in fact, that John Lee pointed out on the very first day of Heather's launch, when she looked panicked when she was asked about that Orange Order connection. So I don't think Fine Gael realised what they had. Now, that doesn't mean that they still don't have it, and that doesn't mean that voters shouldn't take it into account on Friday. But I definitely think there was a weakness on the campaign. But having said that, let's remember, it would be absolutely extraordinary if Irish voters who have supported the EU consistently, and from which through the single market we've gained so much wealth and social reform, actually elected the ally of Claire Daly and Mick Wallace, who've been rejected, of People Before Profit, of Sinn Féin, who've campaigned against every single EU referendum. Are they really going to elect somebody who's, aligned with all of that? Because because they admire her integrity, and because, as the polls showed, people want a president who speaks out about what they believe in their opinions. So they want to elect someone and expect them to speak out against the policies that has made Ireland a wealthy country over the last 30 years. It's quite extraordinary, actually.
I think this line of talk that's come out of the Humphreys campaign, that because Catherine Connolly has been critical of the EU somehow makes her anti-EU,
but she voted against
it's absolutely
the
ridiculous. Yeah. I think that Catherine Connolly has been vocal, like so many of us, in the horrible response that the European Union has for the likes of the genocide in Gaza. There are legitimate concerns, and as a proud European, as Catherine Connolly says, it's important that we engage with the European Union, and we want it to be better.
Is that not, though, Jenny, one of her great fudges? She's great at these. I am absolutely not opposed to the European Union. I'm a proud European. Yeah. Being European and being supportive of the European Union, they're different things.
Absolutely.
Europe's a different entity from the European Union. She's slow to praise the European Union.
Brexit on this programme.
No, she did not. Catherine Connolly has been. It's important that we get out and that we are critical of the institutions. We are all Europeans and we want the best for Europe. And so it's important that we engage critically. And the idea that dismissing that and putting it away, that is some sort of Nigel Farage-esque tactic, it is going to do more harm for the union than good.
Fionnan, if voting on Friday tallies with the latest poll, which had Catherine Connolly on 38%, say Heather Humphreys on 20%, and a huge amount, as Sarah says, of don't knows or spoiled votes or haven't decided yet, do you see that as a rejection of that kind of pro-European centrist policy that we've followed in this country? Or is it, as Sarah suggested, maybe people who don't necessarily agree with her policies but just admire her integrity?
I think the public are capable of being inconsistent, would be my answer to that. They're capable of compartmentalising their votes. We saw this 18 months ago. People overwhelmingly slammed two referendums that were put to them by the government. And we had people coming in after that going, oh, this now is going to shape the general election. It had zero impact on the general election. It had a major impact on Fine Gael because it was the end of the road for Leo Varadkar. It showed he was completely out of touch with the public. But it didn't impact the actual general election and how that prevailed. And we have seen this in the past. I mean, Bertie Ahern, at the height of his powers, managed to lose a European referendum, managed to lose an abortion referendum, both in the space of 6 months. He went on to nearly get an overall majority. So the Irish public, they pick and choose exactly how they vote. You have to remember as well, this is a second-order election. It's not an election that's going to affect our cost of living, our day-to-day life and policies. At best, the President can comment about issues like that, but they can't necessarily direct them.
Just a quickie on that. I've been astonished when I've been speaking to people, including I was talking to two women there a week ago who are involved in international marketing, who were saying, yeah, we admire Catherine Connolly and criticising the EU is OK. And they didn't seem to believe that it would matter that you would have a head of state who would criticise other European countries for defending themselves against Russia.
She did say she wouldn't use the language comparing Germany today to Nazi Germany.
We can only go on what she said already. And what she said is Germany today is like Germany in the 1930s. And people seem to think it won't matter if the head of state says that. And I think that's a pretty reckless and risky approach.
I think it comes back to what you said earlier, Kieran, and that is that Heather Humphreys is not offering a vision. That Heather Humphreys is talking about Catherine Connolly more than anything else, whereas Catherine Connolly has formed a broad coalition of independent, left-wing parties, centre-left parties of people who are looking to deliver something better for the Irish people, and Heather Humphreys is looking for a job. Yeah,
I mean, we've just spent 10 minutes talking about Catherine Connolly
exactly.
on foot of Heather Humphreys' interview. Maybe I'm falling into the same trap. Or maybe, Sarah, there's just precious little to talk about because she hasn't successfully presented that vision.
And it's such a shame, Kieran, because I know the message I'd be given if I was running that campaign.
Well, what would it be?
OK, Obama, no blue states and no red states. How about a vision where there's no green state and no orange state? And we're reaching out and making a really inclusive, united Ireland. And she is uniquely poised to do that. And she launched Frank McNally's book there a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, Frank is a Fianna Fáil man from Monaghan who reported on that drum parade. And he was saying how the Monaghan model would be the way to go. That's the message that she should be selling. And she's 3 days left to sell it.
Yeah, 3 days.
Change tactic again.
Yeah, well, it's 3 days. I mean, it would be monumental, Fionnan, to turn around the campaign at this point, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but we have had dramatic closing stages of previous elections. Go 1990, go 2011. It does happen. But you're looking at those figures. You look at the low turnout. I've had rows of people about who the low turnout will benefit. I think the low turnout will actually benefit Catherine Connolly more than it will Heather Humphreys in this case. You're going to have that low turnout. There's only the two candidates in it. It's pretty much spectacular at this stage if you can turn this around.